Good evening. I hope you've all had a wonderful Monday, but it's time to get down to business. Today, we're going to talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, my top 5 head coaches in the NFL today, players not being able to swap jerseys, and lastly, the Washington Redskins officially retiring their team name and logo. So, are you ready to get your fix? Well, currently and recently, I've been seeing some rankings on the current rookie running backs. Most of these lists go Zach Moss at 7, Cam Akers at 6, J.K. Dobbins at 5, Keyshawn Vaughn at 4, DeAndre Swift at 3, Jonathan Taylor at 2, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 1. Well, I want to talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like I just mentioned. He was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs with the 32nd pick in the first round. Now, I wasn't too sure how good he actually was in college, but I knew he was pretty decent, being that he was on LSU. So I went back and took a look at his stats during his time at LSU, and he mainly played 2 seasons fully, but had a total of 3 seasons there. Anyways, in his second season, where he got some playing time, I'm not sure if he really started, Clyde was able to put up 658 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, and 96 receiving yards. So, I mean, not a bad sophomore season by any means. Even if he was the second stringer starter, those are still some solid numbers being your first actual time playing some collegiate football. However, you can go to his last season, which was last year at LSU, where he put up 1,414 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns with 453 receiving yards and a touchdown. He put up really solid numbers, okay? And he even did that with Joe Burrow still throwing 5,671 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. After looking at Clyde's stats and seeing that he could put up big-time numbers with a quarterback who put up ridiculous numbers. I think Joe Burrow holds the record for most touchdowns in a single season and most passing yards in a single season in college football. So with him being able to do that, I understand, why many people are saying that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best rookie running back in the 2020 class. So going to the Kansas City Chiefs, Clyde, he's going to be that second string running back behind Damian Williams, who had an all-right season last year. He only started 6 games last year and rushed for 498 yards, 5 touchdowns, and got 213 receiving yards with 2 touchdowns. For only starting 6 games, these are not bad numbers by any means, okay? But if he doesn't stay healthy, I believe that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be that new starting running back in the Chiefs organization. I think Clyde is an overall better receiving back than Damian Williams, but running the ball, I think it's very even kind of between the two. This will be a good duo, okay, regardless of who takes that starting role, even though I believe Clyde Edwards-Helaire will more than likely end up taking that role. So moving over to the head coaches in the NFL, I've seen a couple lists come out as well, and they say who they believe are the best coaches in the NFL today. So I'm going to do the same, but instead of ranking all 32 head coaches, I'll just give you my top 5 head coaches. So to get started, I got Sean Payton, who's the head coach for the New Orleans Saints, as my 5th best coach in the NFL today. I got Payton at 5 because in 13 years as head coach for the Saints, he's won about 63% of the regular season games. And out of those 13 years, Sean Payton has been able to reach the playoffs 8 times and got all the way to the Super Bowl in 2009 and ended up winning it. And, Sean Payton, he has about an 8-7 record in the playoffs, which is about a 53.3% win percentage. He can get to the playoffs at a pretty good rate, but winning during the playoffs is another story. In the past couple seasons, it's been pretty rough on Sean Payton. As in the last 3 seasons, his record in the playoffs is 2-3. 2 of those losses, by the way, are from the Minnesota Vikings. I think he's really, really good, a really good coach, but his lack of playoff wins, is a reason I got him at 5. Now, as my 4th best coach in the NFL today, I got Pete Carroll, who's head coach for the Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll has been head coach for the New York Jets for 1 season, then New England Patriots for 3, and then now the Seattle Seahawks for the past 10 years. So in 14 seasons, Pete Carroll has a win percentage of 59.6 in the regular season. Now, he's best known to be the head coach for Seattle, like I mentioned. And in 10 seasons, Pete Carroll has a 62.8 win percentage in the regular season. Now, I understand that's a lower percentage than Sean Payton, but Pete Carroll hasn't had a losing season since 2011. So 9 years ago, okay, whereas Sean Payton had a losing season in 3 consecutive years in 2014, 2015, and 2016 at 7-9 each year. So, Pete Carroll, he's been more consistent getting wins recently, which plays a factor in being a better coach than Sean Payton. Pete Carroll has also reached the playoff 8 out of the 10 seasons he's been in Seattle, which is better than Sean Payton as well. And Pete Carroll has had a 58.8 win percentage in the playoffs with 1 Super Bowl ring and an NFC championship. So I believe Pete Carroll is an overall better head coach than Sean Payton. And that's where we're going to leave it right there. So going to my third best coach in the NFL, Mike Tomlin, who's the head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tomlin has been the head coach for the Steelers for 13 seasons and has a 64.2 win percentage in the regular season. Oh, and he's never, ever, and I repeat, never had a losing season in his 13 years as a Steeler coach. Okay, that's even with having some really good teams, but also some pretty rough teams. I mean, last year's team was riddled with injuries and had a third-string quarterback starting at times and still led the Pittsburgh Steelers to an 8-8 record. And if the playoff format was the same as it is this year, then guess what? The Steelers would have been 7th seed last year. They would have made the playoffs at 8-8 with a whole bunch of injuries and a third-string quarterback. I mean, he did that virtually with nothing. Okay, and again, in 13 years, Mike Tomlin has been to the playoffs 8 times, has a Super Bowl ring from the 2008 season, and then an NFC championship from the 2010 season. Now, he does only have a 53-point win percentage in the playoffs, which is just like Sean Payton. But I feel like Mike Tomlin has had to deal with worse talent over the years and has been able to never have a losing record. So Mike Tomlin is my third best coach in the NFL today. So moving over to my second best coach, Andy Reid of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Andy Reid, he's best known for coaching the Philadelphia Eagles for 14 seasons, but has been with the Chiefs for about 7 years, I believe. Now, in Andy's 7 years with the Kansas City Chiefs, he has a 68.8 win percentage in the regular season, has never had a losing season during his time in Kansas City. Andy Reid has won 50% of his playoff games with the Chiefs as well, and he made it to the Super Bowl last season, where, I mean, he ended up getting a ring, and that was his first ever ring. He tried with Philly, I believe, 2 or 3 times, didn't get it. He had McNabb and Michael Vick. Didn't happen, but he won it with Patrick Mahomes last season. But one reason I got Andy Reid as my second best coach is because he is probably the most innovative head coach we've seen. Okay, when he was in Philadelphia, Andy Reid faced a similar situation that Mike McCarthy did in Green Bay, where it felt as if things were getting stagnant, okay, and plays, they were just the same. He was never changing plays, never doing anything. However, though, coming to Kansas City has really helped his legacy as a head coach. Okay, now Andy Reid, he will come up with different plays every week or even every day. He is in the perfect situation in Kansas City and is currently, in my eyes, on pace for at least one more Super Bowl ring with Patrick Mahomes. So we'll see where that takes off, but right now he's my second best coach in the NFL today. So finally, let's go to who I believe is the best head coach in the NFL. And that man is the head coach for the New England Patriots. Yep, Bill Belichick. Now, I get all those cheating scandals and all that, but Bill Belichick has coached the Patriots for 20 years. Okay, he's going on to his 21st season. Now, during those 20 years, Bill has a win percentage of 74.1%. Most wins as a head coach in NFL history. Or, I don't think so, actually. I think he's really close. I think he's like third or second on the list, I believe. But he's getting up there, okay? Now, the only time Bill had a losing record with the Patriots was in 2000. So his very first year coaching there. Now, one thing about Bill Belichick that really, kind of sticks out is that he's no stranger to the playoffs, okay, which is a big reason I got him as my best coach. Bill Belichick has a win percentage of 73.2% in the playoffs, and to add to that, he has 6 Super Bowl rings. Okay, him and Tom have 6 Super Bowl rings, and they have a total of 9 AFC championships there. I mean, this will be the first time since coaching for the Cleveland Browns back in the early 90s that Bill will have a tough test. Okay, he lost the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, and has a beat up offensive line with little to no weapons at wide receiver. Their tight end's kind of iffy, but I mean, I think this could end up being the first time in 20 years that Bill could have a losing record. But with how great he is, I don't see that happening. Bill Belichick, I think he's going to lead the Patriots to anywhere from 8-8 to better than that. I don't see him having a losing record just because of how great of a coach he is, but if he isn't the greatest or as great as I believe, then, like I said, we could possibly see the first losing season in his career with the New England Patriots. So Bill Belichick, number one head coach in the NFL today. So anyways, let's move over to something I found really interesting kind of. So last Thursday, the NFL came out and said that there will be no more post-game jersey swaps between players. Now, I get that swapping jerseys is more for the players and it's really not part of the game. But these players, they swap jerseys to get people they idolize, or they get their friends' jerseys, or just people they grew up with. So one thing I really can't wrap my head around, okay, is that these guys are able to go out and play 60 minutes of full contact football. Guys constantly touching each other, tackling, pretty much anything you can imagine. They're all up in each other's, they're just all up in each other's stuff for 60 minutes, okay? And you're telling me after the game, they have to go straight to the locker room. No shaking hands, no prayers, none of that. Straight to the locker room, that's it. Game's over, you're done. So you're telling me that after 60 minutes of literally grabbing those jerseys, they've touched those jerseys, they've touched pretty much maybe all 53 personnel on each team, they can't swap jerseys? They can't swap jerseys after they just got done playing that whole 60 minutes. I mean, take in mind that all of these players will be tested, okay, before they can even participate in the game. So that means they don't have the virus, and jersey swapping shouldn't matter. None of that should matter. If they're already out there together, combined, it shouldn't matter at all. I mean, there are already players, okay, there already are players saying that they will stand 6 feet away from each other, okay, 6 feet away from each other and throw their jerseys. They'll sign it, throw their jerseys at them. So, I mean, do I think players are going to still swap jerseys? Of course. Of course I do. Whether that be on the field in front of the cameras to prove a point, or after the game behind closed doors so that nobody really kind of knows. They get back into the locker room area or in that hallway and they're just like, hey, there you go. I mean, if it were me, though, okay, take in mind, if it were me and I played against, let's say, Tom Brady, who's been my favorite NFL player since I could comprehend football, not counting Randy Moss. Randy Moss is definitely up there, probably tied with Brady. Then if I play against him, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that man's jersey. Okay, because this could be his last year. Who knows? If he wins a ring, it could be his last year. He could play another one, but if he wins a ring, why not? Why wouldn't it be his last year? So you got to kind of take that in mind. I think this rule is just ridiculous, but I understand why they made this choice. I just don't agree with it. So finally, on to the Washington Redskins, who came out today and said they are retiring their team name and logo. I said this before, and I'll say it again. I knew this would be the case. After they came out and said it's going to be reviewed, it was a no-brainer. It had to be, especially at the time we are in today. I'm glad they're changing it, as it gives NFL fans a chance to see something different. Even though it's the same team, it'll give us something different to look at, okay, and talk about. Now, it hasn't been said yet when they will reveal their new name and logo, but I assume it'd be very soon, within the week or next week. But I'm sure it'll be something creative. It'll be interesting. But they got to do it soon in order to get everything changed, new jerseys, new helmets, all that stuff. But I will make sure to let you guys know as soon as that happens. We'll kind of discuss it and give you my take on what I think their name comes out to be. So for now, all I can do, though, is, just throw out guesses. We got the Red Tails, we got the Generals, we got all those other kind of weird names that I mentioned last week. So that's going to end our discussion today. We got to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, top 5 head coaches in the NFL today, players not being able to swap jerseys, and finally the Washington Redskins officially retiring their team name and logo. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you Friday, and you just got your fix with the Wicks.